Hi everyone, it's Janine from It's Naturally Neen. Happy Sunday. Today I wanted to do a video to tell you about my experience with autoimmune, what I experienced. So hopefully this might connect with you, it might inspire you, and also it gives you a sense of why I can speak to the things that I speak about. So I developed rheumatoid arthritis at the age of 15. Up until that point, I was a normal kid. I was playing like 3-4 sports at a time. I was doing cheerleading, gymnastics, dance, lacrosse, and soccer. I was active, I was athletic. I had never thought about my joints ever in my life. They were completely neutral to me. The symptoms that I started to develop were a bit innocuous at first. The very first symptom that I recall experiencing was in the middle of the night. Occasionally, I would be woken up with excruciating pain down my shoulder. And it could be the right shoulder, it could be the left. But it felt like somebody was taking a knife and dragging it down my arm. And no matter which way I laid, it was excruciating pain. I ended up taking more Motrin, more Advil than I'm sure was safe just to get through the night. I've never felt pain like that before. But weirdly enough, the next day I would wake up, my arm would feel tender. I still couldn't raise my arm when I woke up, but as the day went on, it would get better and better, and by the next day it would be gone. So I would just, out of mind. Okay, thank God that went away. And then unfortunately it would come back, but it was random and it was more occasional than it was frequent. The next symptom that I developed was one morning I woke up and my thumb was swollen, but it didn't hurt. And so I was making jokes with my friend, like as if I blew up my thumb like it was a balloon. Because there was no pain, I wasn't really worried about it. I just thought, maybe it's too humid. Maybe I overdrank water. I mean, I'm 15 at the time. I don't know what to think, but I didn't think much about it. Then what started happening is in the mornings I would wake up and the bottom of my feet would ache. I'd be walking down the hallway limping in the morning because the bottoms of my feet were so sore. And I'm like, this is not normal. This is not right. I haven't experienced this before. But as parents do, my parents were very like, it's those Nike shocks. You had to have the Nike shocks. You're running a lot. This is normal. And so I tried to convince myself it was normal, but deep down inside, I knew something is really wrong. That's when the arthritis spread like rapid fire through my body. It went to, it was already in my toes, but it went to the ankles, the knees, the elbows, the wrists, the fingers, obviously, my shoulders, my jaw, my neck. I remember having a sleepover at one of my friends. We slept on the couch. In the morning, I woke up and I realized I could no longer turn my neck because I had slept in a weird position the night before, and I could no longer turn my neck until I was diagnosed, got on medication that started working, and then that function came back. So how did this impact me? I went from playing 4 sports, 5 sports, to not being able to walk down the steps. I'd literally have to sit down on my butt and scooch down the steps. I couldn't lift myself out of bed in the morning because I couldn't bend my wrists. I couldn't put pressure on my elbows. My shoulders were killing. I would literally have to use my abs to pull myself straight up to get out of bed. I couldn't open a jar. I struggled to open any doorknobs that spun like that. It's funny because then your mind starts to think differently. Like when you see a doorknob that's flat that you can just use your forearm to press, you get excited. But these are things you would never think about before. I could no longer, do my hair, to straighten my hair. That would have been a nightmare at the time, or to blow dry it. I struggled to even tie my shoes. And I will say that something that I personally experienced that I'm sure some other people experienced is my parents didn't get it. There were people in my life who thought I was faking it for attention, or I was just exaggerating. Oh, she's having a little pain. But no, this was taking over my body and it was scary. And no one else got it. I had friends accuse me of faking it because by the end of the day, they said I seemed fine. But the thing is that with arthritis, what can happen is it's worse in the morning than it is at night. So the more you're able to loosen up and move, the better your joints can feel by the end of the day. But people took that as me faking it. The other symptom that I developed, which I don't know would be a symptom of arthritis, but it was present in my case, is I developed stress fractures in both my shins. So what happens? I go to the primary care physician because we need a referral. I don't even know what's wrong with me. We go to the primary care physician. She asked me to fill out a form with a skeleton and circle all of the things that hurt. So I circled literally like every joint on the skeleton. The doctor takes a look at my chart. She sees I have stress fractures and she says, I think you're just experiencing stress fractures in multiple parts of your body. There's no blood work that needs to be done. This isn't urgent. Just go see a sports medicine doctor. And as she said this, tears are coming down my face because I know how stupid that is. If I were to have stress fractures here and here and here and here and here, wouldn't that be a problem on its own? So you're telling me I don't need any blood work. You're not going to check my inflammation levels. This is literal insanity. But, she took my mom in a sidebar. Literally, she thought I was crazy. So her recommendation, go see a sports medicine doctor. There's no urgency. So therefore, I had to wait the 4 weeks that it took to get in to see the sports medicine doctor. I go into the sports medicine doctor. He takes a look at my chart where I circle everything on the skeleton again. And he's like, why are you here? Either you have Lyme disease or you have arthritis. And you shouldn't be at a sports medicine doctor. And I'm like, well, thank you. I didn't know that. So he decides to do lab work and he takes fluid out of my knee. He drains the fluid out of my knee. What I didn't realize at the time is that if you take too much, it can send your body into shock. So I go into the waiting room. I'm waiting for my mom to pay. I start feeling really ill. Next thing I know, I pass out and I'm convulsing on the waiting room floor. And I wake up with all these electrodes all over me. The doctor didn't apologize, which honestly, at the age of 15, that was kind of traumatic. And I feel like there could have been some acknowledgement of like, hey, are you okay? Like, sorry about that, but no. Anyway, test results come back a couple weeks later. All of this is like time in which I'm getting worse and worse, and I'm just very scared. Lab work comes back, okay, you have rheumatoid arthritis. My parents took me to University of Pennsylvania, their children's hospital. They had such a long wait list, but when they saw my case, they insisted that I get in immediately. So they fit me in somewhere with not a brand new doctor, one of the top doctors. They immediately put me on methotrexate, and because of insurance reasons, I was supposed to wait, I forget how long, but to give that a chance to work before they could even consider a biologic. So my case was so bad that they had to override the insurance and get me immediately on enbrel within just a couple of weeks of being on methotrexate. The enbrel, as you may have heard me say in other videos, worked like overnight. I woke up the next day and I want to say 50% of my joints felt better. So I'm on the highest dose of methotrexate, I'm on enbrel, I'm on prednisone, I'm on a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory. They're doing cortisone injections in multiple joints. Eventually, all of this gets it under control. And I don't mean to skip through a bunch of information, but for relevant purposes, that put me into remission for 5 years. And I was grateful for that. So now I'm in college, and they're decreasing the methotrexate because, as you might know, that's a chemo drug and you can't drink on that. And knowing that I'm a college student, they were trying to get me off of it. I don't know if that's what caused everything to go to shit, or maybe the fact that I was living in a dorm room that was moldy and college was very stressful. But all I can say is that at some point in that time period of decreasing the methotrexate, the enbrel also stopped working and everything came back full force. I would say even worse than before. This time when it came back, it took about 2 years to get it back under control. And during that time, I tried different drugs. I tried some of the older school drugs like Plaquenil, and I believe it's called sulfasalazine. Those did not work for me, and I think I was also on methotrexate when I tried those. And forgive me, it's a while ago, but that's my memory today. And the one thing I remember about that is I started to develop very swollen lymph nodes to the point that they were concerned I was developing cancer and checking for that. So you can imagine that being very stressful. During this time, I stress fractured my foot, not doing anything extraneous, just from the arthritis. So I was in a boot. I'm trying to live my normal college life, but I can't drink alcohol, which was a big thing of the culture there, you know? I couldn't drink alcohol. I was walking around in a boot. I had extreme joint pain. I was very fatigued. It was hard for me to keep up with my friends, let alone feel like, you know, part of the group, because there was a lot of things that I couldn't do. And I was on such a high amount of prednisone that I think I put on 12 pounds. I was eating like 2 dinners a night. No one told me that I was going to be hungrier, so I didn't even know to look for this. My cheeks, if you look back at pictures, I look like a chipmunk from the prednisone. What also started happening during this time is I started to develop recurring UTIs, recurring yeast infections. I started really experiencing panic attacks and social anxiety disorder. It was really hard for me to sit in lecture halls. And I went to a big public university where there would easily be over maybe 200 people in a classroom. And that would trigger my anxiety through the roof. I would have a panic attack nearly every lecture, and it would take every ounce of me to not run and leave the room. It was highly uncomfortable for me. They put me on humira in this time period, and I believe most doctors give it, let's say, 6 months to work. I think I was on humira for a year before it really started working. I was really annoyed at my doctor at the time because I'm like, hello, this isn't working. I'm in tears every day from the pain, but he kept me on it, and it eventually did work in combination with methotrexate and enbrel and prednisone until I was able to get off the prednisone. Fast forwarding, this put me into remission for another 5 years, which allowed me to finish college and go to law school, graduate from law school. And it was not until I was working in the law firm that the arthritis came back with a vengeance. Another vengeance. This time they tried upping the humira, they tried increasing the methotrexate. I was on the max of literally everything. And when that wasn't working, they switched me to Cimzia. When I went on Cimzia, my liver levels went through the roof, and they weren't sure which was causing it, so they had to pull me off all of the medication. I developed other symptoms besides joint pain. I was having hives, which I developed hives when I was 15, but they had went away. So the hives came back. I was still experiencing the recurring UTIs, the recurring yeast infections. Something that I developed was vertigo, to the point where it would be difficult for me sometimes to leave the house. Like I couldn't leave the house. I had insomnia. I would go to bed maybe at 11:30 and I'd be waking up at 1:30 wide awake, and then I'd fall back asleep at 5 maybe and get up at 7, and I just felt like a wreck. So that ultimately led me to go on Adderall because I'm trying not to lose my job here, and there was some internal belief system that prevented me from going on disability. I developed acne, and I was having acne all here on my forehead, on my chest, on my back. I developed some weird things like shingles and tonsillitis. I was very, very sick. And it was at this time, which is around 2017, 2018, that I then decided to go holistic, because they had pulled me off all the drugs anyway, and that was just supposed to be temporary. But I was reading all this text about how you can heal naturally with diet, and I just became convinced that pharma is a big scam, which yes and no. And so I was like, I'm going to do this on my own. I started working with a functional medicine doctor who was an MD, which made me feel better, but she also had the functional side. That didn't work out, but I worked with her for like 2.5 years. And during this time period, I got sicker and sicker. I wasn't on medication except for taking a lot of Tylenol and a lot of Advil to get through the day. And I know how terrible that is for your body. In the moment, like I couldn't think clearly. And I had been, I want to say, poisoned by a lot of sources saying that these drugs will kill you, meaning the arthritis drugs. They're going to kill you, they're poison, and so I was doing my best not to take them. At this time, this went on for a few years. I lived in a dark night of the soul. It got to the point where I was developing nerve pain, like you couldn't even, my boyfriend at the time would go to tickle my arm to soothe me, and I would be in tears because him touching me lightly was so painful. And I also was diagnosed with interstitial cystitis, which is a bladder condition, inflammation of the bladder, where you feel like you have a UTI, but you don't, and you're constantly going to the bathroom. And this alone would keep me up at night. I developed pain in the vaginal area so that I couldn't have sex. Not that I really wanted to at this time because everything was a mess. And then my job started to try to get rid of me. You know, how can someone perform when they're experiencing things like this? And I had a relationship of 3 years, an engagement that fell apart. My life effing sucked. There's no other way to put it. It was a really dark time for me. Things that I tried diet. I went to the extremes. I went vegan, I was doing medical medium, and then eventually I swung the pendulum and I went carnivore, I went keto. I was receiving Reiki healing sessions almost regularly from 2017 up through like 2022. I was doing detox. I was taking more supplements than I can count. I spent a ton of money on labs and testing, looking into mold, looking into Lyme, looking into gut issues, GI mapping, food sensitivities. I detoxed parasites. I worked one-on-one with other holistic practitioners. I did a lot of things. I want to say I did it all, but there's always more you can do. But none of this stuff was working for me. Eventually, come early 2021, I decided to go back on a medication because what I realized is it's really hard to heal when you are so far in the hole, when you're so far in that black hole that you're depressed, you're crying frequently, you can't sleep at night, you can't go to the bathroom regularly, you can't make your own food, the food that you make you're reacting to. That was not serving me. And I know that in the past, medication had provided at least a level of relief or complete relief for a time. And so I made the decision to go back on a biologic. This time I went on Actemra, which it was my first time going on Actemra. I did not reincorporate the methotrexate, and I did experience a good amount of relief from Actemra. But interestingly, it wasn't to the point of remission, and it was the point where if I still ate something that didn't agree with my body would tell me. So in a way, it's a little bit of a blessing and a curse. Like I would personally prefer to just feel good 24/7, but it has been this interesting relationship where I still have a gauge on where my body's at with certain foods and lifestyle changes. The thing that I have realized in the past year that was really missing for me in my healing journey was working on my mind, working on the subconscious. I believe that disease can have a variety of causes. I think that there can be spiritual causes. Literally, there can be a curse on your family that's affecting your health. There can be an entity that's attached to you that's feeding this disease. And at the same time, your subconscious mind can be stuck in a program that is causing your body to continuously signal these symptoms. So for me, at the time that I developed arthritis in childhood, I was dealing with a lot of stress, a lot of turmoil, and a lot of chaos in my life. And what I've come to recognize is that my body was trying to signal to me a specific action to keep me safe. My body was causing me to shrink and to stay small so that I would be unnoticed. That, for me, being small, being unnoticed, being contained, that brought safety for me back then. And it's as if my subconscious mind is continually tapping on my shoulder to say, hey, I want you to do this. I want you to stay small. I want you to stay contained. But this is a behavior it wanted from me 20 years ago, and it no longer is serving me. So what I have been doing recently to unravel that is subconscious reprogramming. I'm currently receiving a form of therapy called rapid resolution therapy, and I'm training in it myself. I am planning to open a few one-on-one sessions so that I can start offering this therapy to other people to move you from suffering and stuck into the present, into health. At the same time, I'm using diet not as the end-all be-all, but just as a supplement to match where my body's at this time. By using this subconscious reprogramming, I'm starting to break down blocks and paradigms that have been harvesting energy from me, harvesting essential life force energy for healing. And I'm starting to feel the effects of doing that work, the positive effects of doing that work. I will say for some people, the results can be immediate. For others, it can be over time. Because as you start to restore your energy, your body has more resources to direct towards your healing. You can hear in my other videos the things that I've tried that have worked for me, that have not worked for me, the things that I've learned, the things that I feel can become prisons, the things that I believe you can use as a tool, but you have to be careful as you use it. And in all these videos, I'm reminding you that we have the ability to heal. Back in the day, people used to just heal themselves without a diet, without supplements, without detox, because we have that innate power. However, unfortunately, our society today is so programmed to get away from that power that we forget that, and we tend to outsource to other modalities. At the end of the day, our healing comes from us remembering how powerful we are and reclaiming that power and commanding healing in our lives. The subconscious work can help to bring mind up to speed with that concept. If anything I've said resonates with you, I hope that you will click subscribe and check out some of my other videos. I really do feel there's a lot of good content in there to help people. Take what resonates with you, leave what doesn't, and I hope to see you next time.